Good evening, and how are you doing? It's December the 31st, 2019, and it's about roughly 6 p.m. and it's the end of the year and a beginning of another one. This time 12 months ago, just before the decline of the relationship with my former partner and the mother of my daughter, we shared New Year's Eve together and had a real vintage evening. It was fantastic. We had a good time, and it's nice a year on to have that as almost like a swan song for that particular chapter in my life, and chapter of our lives. Never would have believed that 2 or 3 weeks later I'd be the best part of 200 miles away from my partner and my child, and back with my parents. That was a period of 2019 that was agony. It was only 2 months of my life, but it just seemed to go on forever. I've been back in this area 9 months now, and it just seems to be such a minute amount of time when stacked up against those 2 months that I was somewhere where I really didn't want to be. I don't like that area, full stop. You know, there are things about it that I appreciate and enjoy, but it's an area that I don't dislike. I don't mean it that way, but it's got a lot of memories and a lot of ghosts that I've moved on and I've moved away, and that suits me, is what it boils down to, and I think that's a perfectly healthy state of affairs. Having been here and in this house for 9 months, it's been 9 of the most juxtaposed months of my life, in the joy and the tragedy that have befallen many of us. It's not just me. This place continues to be a lovely port in the storm of life. I like living here, and I've got one very good friend who lives under this roof, who the adversity that we shared through the year and the wonderful times as well have brought us very close. I think that it would take a seismic disturbance to break the bond that we have between us, because we've witnessed and shared moments in life that you can't turn back from. Once you've been there, you can't turn back. Once you've seen certain things and once you've been to certain places, you cannot turn back. There is no what was. There is only that moment and where you've moved to from it. And I'm sure all of us can relate to that. You know, we've all had relationships end, or things in life where we make a decision, or people make a decision on their behalves to get rid of us, you, me, from their lives. They excise the dead wood, and at times I've been that person, and I've had situations where I've been the person getting rid of the dead wood. And you know, it's in life, it's something, when we're using language like that, we always think that it, or the implication is usually that the dead wood was a problem, when in point of fact sometimes it's just a natural part of the cycle of life. The comings, the goings, the toings, the froings, the birth and the death. You know, it's all part of life. And there's a hell of a lot of situations and people and environments I look back on that I will never be a part of again in my life. But and there was deadwood involved. Sometimes it was on my behalf, sometimes it was on all of our behalves, and sometimes it was on their behalf. But getting rid of it, burning that wood and getting some heat from it, and a sustained glow for the future, it doesn't mean it was bad when it came time to burn that wood, you know. It was just how it had to be. Totally had a reassessment of what love, time, pain, ecstasy. I've had a total attitude and life readjustment as to what those things all mean, what they mean to me. 2019 has altered me irreparably. And I say that in terms of the good that's happened to me. And I think a lot of the darker aspects of life that have visited me have changed me. In this moment, it doesn't feel for the better, but I know in the future I will see the glowing embers of what burnt down so fiercely and so quickly in a few instances in my life, and I will appreciate the glowing embers one day, that they weren't just explosions that were a massive churning out of energy, only to be left with a completely cold environment. Every situation that burnt out or faded away was very warm, and it had a heart and a soul and a core, and those coals that were burning still burn hot, but you know, I think in life we have to walk away and move away from things, and things leave us irreparably. And I'm not alone, I think, in feeling that we often feel younger, that the endings have to be just that, just complete and utter divorce from any situation, person, time, environment. But sometimes it can take a while, but we can look back on those explosions that happened in warm situations and see that the embers are still alight. The light is still flickering, and the warmth is still there if you're prepared to silence your ego and actually realise that sometimes an ending can be very painful, but it was just meant to be. And I'm finding it very hard to get my head around the concept of appreciating loss. You know, it's very much not in the sense of the traditional sense of how I'm going to put this, but you know, this has been a very winter point in my life this last year or so, where everything came to a conclusion, everything went to seed, everything went into the ground, and it's a time where I'm waiting for spring to occur again, and for the shoots of the future to show themselves. And of course, I'm privileged and lucky enough to have a beautiful daughter who's 8 years old. She'll be turning 9 in 2020, and she gives me all the focus and purpose that I require to be relatively optimistic about the thought of looking to the ground in the coming months with no expectation, but just seeing those literal and metaphorical signs of spring. If we survive the winter and our hibernation from all that can be so wonderful, if it's what we needed to do and we survive that winter, spring is always going to come. God bless, and a very, very happy 2020.